But okay, now we did it. Okay, thank you. Uh, Thank you very much, Lily. Thank you, Batya Bruton, for inviting us and getting this together. And yes, thank you, Daniel, who is my son, Daniel Wolk, for the tech help so that Sonia Hedgepeth, who is professor emerita in Tennessee and is in Tennessee, and I am in Jerusalem, and we're talking to each other. So it's really good tech, and I'm really so glad we're doing this together because we've been working on sexual violence during the Holocaust since the very beginning. I, of course, thank Women in the Holocaust International Study Center for inviting Remember the Women Institute to uh, co-sponsor this event, and I think it's very important. Sonia and I met in 1996 at a NEH, National Endowment for the Humanities, summer seminar in Brandeis University. And the next year, I founded Remember the Women Institute, and Sonia's been on the executive board as well as my sidekick ever since then. And so it's our 30th anniversary of having dialogue. So we thought we should have a dialogue. And it's 29th anniversary of Remember the Women Institute. Now, about a decade after we met, we decided to create a book about sexual violence against Jewish women during the Holocaust. So, Sonia, maybe you'll tell us what happened that led to this first spark in 2006.
2006, Rochelle and I were at a conference at Yad Vashem, and our topic was Beyond Anne Frank or Anne Frank, because women were really not included in the research very much. And we have some people in the audience today I know who are people who started the work on this, in particular, Carol Rittner. And so at some point, Rochelle said something about rape of women in Ravensbrück, and a very prominent uh, Holocaust scholar in the audience said, Rochelle, you can't say that. And so we left our session and we're like, what is he talking about? Uh, Women weren't supposedly raped during the Holocaust. Murder, yes. Rape, no. And so that was the first idea, because there were other scholars working on this. We had heard them. So this was the idea to make a co-edited book, an anthology on sexual violence against Jewish women during the Holocaust. And Rochelle, why was it important to work on this?
Well, before I say that, I want to say you were very nice, but he very rudely interrupted me and stood up and yelled at me in the middle of a presentation. And I also want to add that that workshop, Beyond Anne Frank, was the first time that Yad Vashem ever did a workshop on women. So why was it important to do this? We have been dealing with women's experiences, all kinds of experiences, biological differences from men, societal, cultural, gender related, making sure women's stories were part of the narrative. And then we started naturally to think about women as victims of sexual violence. And really, in the beginning, there wasn't a whole lot of evidence to find. You had to really look for it. The documentation was hard to find here and there. I personally, myself, when I started working on Ravensbrück women's concentration camp early, I thought that this issue of sexual violence and rape was maybe, I don't know, rare or sporadic or not always, or maybe one woman here, there. It wasn't like something huge. But by now, I've changed my mind. We've changed our minds, and we really believe that it was quite prevalent in a lot of different ways. And if you think about the entry process, which you've probably read about or seen in a movie or something, the entrance process to a concentration camp is sexual violation for a woman without any question. And I remember that Nava Semmel of blessed memory, who was part of our book and came to one of the talks about it, but she said that, and I mean, yeah, I knew that, but I never really thought about it. And she just opened our eyes. Yes, any woman that came into a concentration camp was sexually violated. Sonia?
So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this book, and there are three um people, and there might be more of you in the audience, and I just didn't see you. But I want to acknowledge Monica Flaschka, Eva Fogelman, and Ellen Ben Safer. And women had been working on this. It was not it was something that just wasn't brought to the forefront. Women were raped during Kristallnacht. There were bordellos in concentration camps. And sure, the argument is Jewish women weren't used in the bordellos. Where's the proof? Where are the documents? And it keeps going back to this. When it had gone, where are the documents? So, certainly in scholarship and research, we have come much, we've come a long way, baby, as we said, uh, used to say. But certainly, there are great advances that have been made. And is there anything else about the book, Rochelle, that I should say?
I don't know if you should
It
say
was
it,
the
but
first one. It was the first one.
uh, well, we're not going to go through the laundry list of the various kinds of sexual violence. We can do it at the end if there are questions, but
No,
this
and
audience
besides,
knows about it. I don't think we need to
exactly.
do that. But again, to say this was 2010, it's kind of late if you think about it. And it was the first book that was published specifically on this subject of sexual violence. So I think it's important to say it's good that you acknowledged some of our wonderful chapter authors that are here with us now. And if we left anybody out, I don't know, raise your hand or put it in the chat. And I didn't have a chance to look through it. I'm glad you did, Sonia. But the scholars that we approached for this book, they were from various fields. We'd met some of them at conferences and people. And so we asked people who we thought would be appropriate for being in the book. But I think that also it was not just history. There was literature, there was film, there was psychology, uh, and it was an intergenerational group of authors, and it was an international group of authors and an interdisciplinary group. So I think that's important to point out about the book. And anything you want to add?
No, I would like to say that beyond, and Lily mentioned this already, but I think it's important to emphasize that also then this went beyond academic research efforts, and that it also art and theater have started to incorporate thinking about sexual violence during the Holocaust. And ours was particularly sexual violence against Jewish women during the Holocaust. And it continues to be that, okay, we'll believe women, but perhaps not Jewish women. And we might come back to that later and maybe in some questions that you have, plural. But yeah, so art and theater, anything there, Rochelle?
Well, yeah, and I mean what you just said with not believing Jewish women, I'm not going to go into it at all, but we certainly found out about it again in after October 7, 2023, and Lily also mentioned it. So yes, it's a continuing issue, evidently. And just to mention briefly, which Lily already mentioned. In 2018, Remember the Women Institute organized an international group art exhibition, Violated Women in Holocaust and Genocide. Dr. Batya Bruton was um, the curator, I was the coordinator, and it was at the Rondell Feldman Gallery in New York, which is a very prestigious art gallery in Soho. And we had some famous artists among the artists there. We had Judy Chicago with her Holocaust project, Boris Lurie, who was a Latvian survivor who's very well known, Nancy Sparrow, who was a great feminist artist, and many other artists. A lot of them were daughters of survivors who were Israeli. And it was a wonderful show. We also had Gil Yefman, who was a young Israeli artist with his crochet sculpture of a sex slave in a bordello, which was spectacular. And as far as theater goes, uh, Cynthia Cooper, who's been working with Remember the Women Institute for years for our women theater and the Holocaust Project, she actually wrote a short play that was performed several times in New York, not just for us, on the difficulty of working with this subject, and nobody wanted to admit that it was going on, as Sonia more or less said. So I think that some attitudes have changed. I think it's maybe our work contributed to it, and I think Sonia wants to say something about that.
So there was a question in the chat. Would you say the gallery and the exhibition name again, please?
Oh, I'll say more than that because you can see the catalog for free on the Remember the Women Institute's website. There is a print version, but there's also a free digital version. It's called Violated Women in Holocaust and Genocide. And that's because we included some art from several later genocides, Rwanda, Sudan, and the Yazidi that come to mind without looking further. But at rememberwomen.org, you're free to see this violated catalog.
Yeah, so I also want to remind us of the times that, and it was Ellen Ben Safer who wrote that at the time in the past, people were not willing to listen, and researchers really didn't know to listen for other things. And here we're talking about sexual violence against women during the Holocaust. So I sort of lost my train of thought because it started to get interesting in my head. But I'd like to point out that previous critics of the subject matter had come around, and that took not 2 days, not 2 months. It took a long time. And there was also in the area of research or going to conferences, there was also this kind of feeling of what you have to say about this is not valid. And that means you as a researcher are not valid. And so it was very difficult, but we have come beyond that because you'll hear later, I mean, soon, Marta will be speaking, which is a testimony, I think, to the fact that we do believe women. So, in any case, I would like to also say that it's very strange to me that Israeli women aren't believed, and in particular in light of October 7th. Do you have any thoughts about that, Rochelle?
Well, my thoughts are, I mean, times have changed, so I was a little bit surprised about that. I mean, Lily referred to it, and the victims. It was a different time, but sex wasn't talked about. There was shame. I'm going back, to Holocaust survivors, and in the Nuremberg trials. Rape wasn't even a crime against humanity. It was a long time ago. And then we come to now, like 2023, with the times that have changed, and the women weren't believed. And we're watching our TV, and we're watching one of the victims, and we all know her name, and she's being shoved into a vehicle to take to Gaza, and her sweatpants are covered with blood. We're all looking at her. So why aren't we, I mean, I'm believing her, but why aren't people believing her? It's crazy. It's just crazy to me. Romy Gonen just gave testimony, another hostage that was freed, about being sexually violated. It's a mystery to me. Um, I can't explain it. I think it's better now. I think it was, I think, for example, some of the old Shoah Foundation, we watched so many of them. The early interviewers, I heard it with my own ears that a woman is starting to say that she was raped. You could see that she's starting to say it. And the interviewer says, and what did your family have for Shabbat dinner before the Holocaust? I am not making this up. So, okay, we've come a long way, and I guess we have further to come. But okay, I don't know how much more time we have, but somebody should tell us
Take
if we
two
have to
steps
end.
forward. We take two steps forward and one and a half back. So I think that this also, I want to also say that when we started, there were personal fears. I'll
That's
speak
what I
for
was going to say
myself
to do that. Yeah.
that I felt first this topic totally frightening. It was frightening to me. And I thought, wow, if I do this, I'm going to call rape to me. That is, it's going to come and it's going to snatch me. And I kid you not, it was at an emotional level. It's living in a country where a woman doesn't go out and walk by herself across an empty parking lot at night. And so that kind of ingrained uh, attitude, it's a fear, really also, I had to overcome that in order to do what Rochelle and I did.
And just to add to that and complement it, I think I want to say that it wasn't easy to do this book and this work and this subject, and it was very important that we did it together. I don't think I could have done it by myself, and I think Sonia would say the same thing. And now there's all these kind of support groups and therapy and whatever for first responders and for victims and for whatever. But we were each other's support system through this, and it was it was tough, but it was good to be together. I don't know if you want to add a little personal touch to that, and then we're
I
going to
do.
end because our
I
time is
do.
up. Go
You
ahead.
do have
I
to
want,
conclude, so try
this
to.
is the
We're
conclusion. Don't
concluding.
worry.
This is
This
the
is the
conclusion.
conclusion. We know. And that was that. And we had we wasn't an anthology, so we had different authors working on this, and everyone may have had her own or his. Anatoly had their experience, but for us, there were really simple things that were important. For instance, when we were working on the book, editing and fixing things, we had a uniform that we appeared in. And we actually had a house drink that would conclude our work day. Just saying.
Right, because we worked together for a whole summer together in Jerusalem working on this book. But we're going to conclude now because we have to, and thank everybody. And we're going to see what happens in the questions and the chat. I hope you think that we made a contribution to the subject. And I just met a young student here from Brandeis, and he said, "Oh, I had your book, and I made Aliyah, and I had to donate it, and I promised him another copy because he's very excited to have it." So I was very excited to be able to give it to him. So the question is with whoever's watching us now, Does it matter? Does it make a difference to know more about sexual violence during the Holocaust? And we thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you very
everyone.
much. It was a very interesting talk. And before we are moving to our third presentation, I would like just to mention two things. Number one, all the questions will be at the end of the third presentation. And also, I don't remember, because as my daughter calls me, I'm Sunny Lily.